And now Marcus Callahan, the very embodiment of everything she'd walked away from, had waltzed right back into her life, casually offering to buy her dignity for a few fleeting hours. "You okay, Sarah?" asked Tommy, the young line cook, who'd quickly become like a little brother to her. "I'm fine, Tommy. Just another day in paradise." But as she finished out the rest of her shift, Sarah couldn't stop replaying the look on Marcus's face when she'd flatly refused his proposition. He'd been genuinely shocked, almost vulnerable, for a split second before his carefully constructed mask had slipped back into place. Despite herself, she found herself wondering what had driven a billionaire to make such a desperate offer to a complete stranger. Not that it ultimately mattered. She'd meant what she'd said. She wasn't for sale, not at any price. Yet, as she locked up the bistro that night, walking through the relentless rain to her tiny studio apartment in Queens, Sarah couldn't shake the persistent feeling that her life was about to undergo yet another significant transformation. What she didn't yet know was that Marcus Callahan wasn't a man who gave up easily, and he almost always got exactly what he wanted, one way or another. The very next morning, Sarah arrived at Bruno's Bistro at 5:30 for the early breakfast shift, her mind still stubbornly replaying the previous day's bizarre encounter. She'd barely slept a wink, tossing and turning in her cramped studio apartment, thoroughly annoyed with herself for allowing Marcus Callahan to occupy so much of her precious mental space. "You're here extra early, even for you, Carissima," Mrs. Romano commented with a warm smile, already busily preparing her famous marinara sauce. The older Italian woman had become Sarah's anchor these past 2 years, offering unwavering support in the present, while wisely refraining from asking any prying questions about her past. Marcus opened the passenger door for her with a gallant gesture, and as Sarah slid into the luxurious interior, she caught a faint, lingering scent of his cologne, something undeniably expensive and subtly masculine. The car's interior was pure luxury, an opulent display of wealth and refined taste. Supple leather seats and state-of-the-art dashboard technology that probably cost more than her entire yearly income. "Nervous?" Marcus asked, his eyes twinkling with amusement as they pulled smoothly into the evening traffic. "Should I be?" "Probably," he admitted with a wry grin. "My mother is incredibly perceptive and discerning, and some of the people attending tonight's gala can be." He paused, searching for the right word to accurately describe the upper echelons of New York society. "Judgmental, elitist, insufferable," Sarah supplied dryly, drawing on her own past experiences in that very same world. Marcus laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound that completely transformed his face, softening his sharp features and making him look years younger. "All of the above and then some. How did you know?" "Lucky guess," Sarah said, remembering countless similar events from her previous life. The endless parade of socialites and power brokers, all jockeying for position and influence. "So what's our story? How exactly did we meet?" "I thought we'd keep it relatively simple and close to the actual truth," he suggested. "You worked at a place that I frequented. We connected almost immediately over coffee, and I knew right away that you were someone special." His eyes flickered to meet hers, his gaze intense and surprisingly sincere. "That part's actually true, you know?" Sarah's pulse quickened despite herself. "And why the secret wedding, the sudden elopement? We wanted something small, intimate, and completely private. Just us. No press, no fuss, no public spectacle. My mother will undoubtedly be disappointed that she wasn't there, but hopefully she'll understand the romantic gesture." They spent the rest of the drive carefully rehearsing the finer details of their hastily constructed backstory. Married for 3 blissful months, currently residing in his luxurious penthouse apartment in Tribeca, Sarah had temporarily taken time off from work in order to adjust to her new life as a pampered wife, a life of leisure and privilege that she could scarcely imagine. The lies came easily, each one wrapping them further and further into a shared fiction that felt increasingly dangerous and unsettling. The plaza was ablaze with dazzling lights when they finally arrived. Valets in crisp uniforms rushed to open car doors, and a barrage of camera flashbulbs went off as photographers clamored to capture the images of arriving guests. Sarah felt her anxiety levels spike dramatically, threatening to overwhelm her carefully constructed facade of calm. But then, Marcus's hand found hers, his touch unexpectedly steadying and reassuring. "Together," he murmured softly, his voice barely audible above the din. "Just stay close to me, and we'll get through this." They walked through the grand entrance, and Sarah was immediately transported back to her old life, a world she thought she'd deliberately left behind forever. Sparkling crystal chandeliers, exquisitely designed gowns, the constant hum of wealth, power, and almost limitless influence. She'd forgotten just how intoxicating this world could be, and just how incredibly poisonous it could be at the very same time. "Marcus, darling," a familiar voice called out. Elizabeth Callahan, radiant in a shimmering silver gown, swept toward them with practiced grace, her keen eyes immediately assessing Sarah from head to toe. "And you must be the mysterious woman from this morning, the one Marcus has been keeping secret. Mother, I'd like you to finally meet my wife, Sarah." Well, Marcus Callahan actually married. "I honestly never thought I'd live to see the day." They both turned to find a stunning woman in a figure-hugging red dress approaching them with a predatory glint in her eyes. She appeared to be roughly Marcus's age, with long, dark hair and an air of calculating ambition. Sarah felt Marcus tense almost imperceptibly beside her, his body rigid with barely suppressed anger. "Victoria," he said coolly, his voice carefully devoid of emotion. "I wasn't aware that you'd be here tonight." Victoria, the ex-fiancée who had so callously betrayed him, the one who had nearly destroyed his reputation and his company. Sarah's protective instincts flared almost involuntarily. "Daddy insisted that I come, since he's still on the board," Victoria said, her eyes raking dismissively over Sarah, clearly unimpressed. "So this is the new Mrs. Callahan. How quaint." "Victoria, this is my wife, Sarah." "Sarah, this is Victoria Rothschild, an old acquaintance." The subtle demotion from fiancé to mere acquaintance was certainly not lost on Victoria, whose carefully practiced smile turned decidedly venomous. "Acquaintance? How sweet. Tell me, Sarah, how exactly did you manage to trap Manhattan's most eligible bachelor? You don't exactly seem like his usual type, darling." Sarah felt a surge of fury rise within her, threatening to overwhelm her carefully maintained composure. But she kept her voice steady and even, refusing to give Victoria the satisfaction of seeing her rattled. "I didn't trap anyone, Victoria. Marcus and I fell deeply in love. Simple as that." "Love? How utterly romantic," Victoria said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "And what exactly do you do, Sarah? Besides spend Marcus's considerable money, of course." Before Sarah could even formulate a scathing response, Marcus stepped forward protectively, his voice suddenly ice-cold and hard as steel. "That's quite enough, Victoria. Sarah is worth 10 of you, and that's being generous. If you'll both excuse us, my wife and I have far better places to be, and far more interesting people to talk to." He expertly guided Sarah away, but not before she caught a glimpse of the pure, unadulterated hatred burning fiercely in Victoria's eyes, a hatred that was clearly directed solely at her. "That woman is definitely going to be a problem," Sarah said quietly once they were safely out of earshot. "I'm so sorry about her," Marcus said, his voice filled with genuine remorse. "She's just incredibly bitter. I've moved on with my life, but she obviously hasn't." "You didn't move on?" Sarah pointed out sharply, the words coming out with far more force than she'd intended. "You hired a fake wife." Marcus stopped abruptly, turning to face her directly, his expression unreadable. "At first, yes, that's true. But Sarah," he said softly, his eyes searching hers with an intensity that made her heart pound erratically in her chest. "The way I feel when I'm with you, the way you handled yourself so gracefully tonight, the way you stood up so bravely to Victoria, it's not fake for me anymore. Not even a little bit." Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs, threatening to break free. "Marcus, we have an arrangement, a business deal. Don't complicate things any further than they already are." "But what if I want complications?" he asked, his dark eyes holding hers captive with an almost magnetic pull that made her knees weak. What if I desperately want to know absolutely everything about you? Your past, your secrets, why someone as remarkable and intelligent as you is serving coffee at a small-town bistro instead of running the entire world. And, he added softly, what if I desperately wanted to know why you flinched when I asked if you'd done this before? You don't even know what you're asking, Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. Sarah looked at him, at this complicated, arrogant, surprisingly kind man who had somehow managed to turn her world upside down in just 24 hours. And she knew that she couldn't keep running from her past forever. The truth was going to come out eventually, one way or another. The only question now was whether she was finally ready to face it. A kind man who had, against all odds, managed to breach the walls around her heart in a mere 2 days. She found herself at a crossroads. She could bolt, disappear back into the shadows, protecting the secrets she so fiercely guarded. Or, she could take a leap of faith, something she hadn't even considered in 3 long years, and actually trust someone. That, she finally choked out, pointing to the specter of David hanging over her, was my ex-fiancé, the man who utterly destroyed my life. Marcus's face hardened, his gaze intense. Tell me everything. And against every survival instinct screaming at her, Sarah began to unravel her story. She spoke of Columbia Law School, of her meteoric rise on the partnership track at Morrison & Associates. She recounted David's calculated betrayal, the bogus ethics violations that had obliterated her reputation and her future. The words poured out of her, a torrent of pent-up emotion, the culmination of 3 years of pain and anger finally breaking free. When she finally reached the end of her harrowing tale, Marcus remained silent for what felt like an eternity. Then he spoke, uttering words that would irrevocably alter the course of her life. I know Morrison & Associates, he said, his voice low and deliberate. I know the senior partner, Richard Morrison. And if what you're saying is true, Sarah Mitchell, you're not just remarkable, you're brilliant. And you've been wasting your potential serving coffee when you should be back in a courtroom, practicing law again. It's not that simple. It never is. But nothing about tonight has been simple, has it? His thumb brushed away her tears, his eyes filled with tenderness. Besides, my reputation just became the CEO who publicly declared love for his fake wife. I can live with that. Sarah laughed through her tears, the sound light and free. You're completely insane. And about you? Absolutely. Indeed. As the party gradually resumed, the guests now viewing them with a mixture of curiosity and grudging admiration rather than judgment, Sarah allowed herself to relax into Marcus's embrace, to savor the moment of unexpected peace. For the first time in 3 years, she wasn't hiding, wasn't pretending to be someone she wasn't. Someone knew her truth, the messy, complicated reality of her past, and chose her anyway. But as they danced later that evening, Sarah noticed David watching them from outside the windows, his expression unreadable, his eyes filled with a chilling emptiness. A shiver ran down her spine, a premonition of impending doom. He'd been too calm when security escorted him out, too calculated, too controlled. Men like David Chin didn't give up easily, and she had the sinking feeling that tonight's public humiliation would only fuel his desire for revenge, transforming his simmering resentment into a burning inferno of hatred. What's wrong? Marcus asked, feeling her tense, his voice laced with concern. David, he's not done with us. Marcus followed her gaze, his jaw tightening as he saw David's shadowy figure lurking outside. Then we'll deal with him together. I'm not letting anyone hurt you again, Sarah. Promise. Sarah wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that their newfound love could conquer the ghosts of her past, that together, they could withstand any storm. But she'd learned the hard way that some demons didn't stay buried, that some wounds never fully healed. And David Chun had always been patient, meticulous, and utterly ruthless when planning his attacks. What she didn't know, as she sat there wrapped in Marcus's arms, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years, was that across town, David Chun was making phone calls, calling in favors, meticulously planning his next move. Because if there was one thing David understood, it was that the best revenge was a dish best served cold, and that true vengeance required patience, unwavering dedication, and a meticulous attention to detail. He'd been patient for 3 long years, biding his time, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike, and he wasn't about to let Sarah Mitchell's unexpected resurgence derail his carefully laid plans. Sarah woke to the sound of sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows and the unfamiliar weight of Marcus's arm draped possessively across her waist. They'd fallen asleep on his couch sometime after dawn, still fully clothed, exhausted from hours of intense conversation and emotional revelation. For a moment, she allowed herself to simply exist in this peaceful bubble, to savor the warmth of his body against hers and the lingering sense of hope that had begun to bloom in her heart. But the illusion of tranquility couldn't last, and reality soon crashed back in, the memories of the previous night flooding her mind. The gala, Victoria's shocking accusation, David's unexpected appearance, Marcus's passionate public declaration. Everything had changed in the span of a single night, the trajectory of her life irrevocably altered. Marcus stirred beside her, his dark eyes slowly opening to meet hers, his gaze filled with warmth and a hint of possessiveness. "Good morning," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep, sending a shiver down her spine. "Morning. We should probably talk about damage control." Always so practical, he smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his touch sending a familiar thrill through her. "Can't we just enjoy this moment? Your board is probably in crisis mode. The press will have a field day with last night's drama." And David, her phone rang, interrupting her train of thought, the shrill ringtone shattering the fragile peace of the morning. The screen displayed Mrs. Romano's number, the sight sending a fresh wave of anxiety washing over her. "Sarah, thank God. Are you all right? It's all over the news." Sarah sat up quickly, her heart pounding in her chest, reaching for the TV remote with trembling fingers. Marcus turned on the television, and her heart sank as she saw the familiar images flickering across the screen. Footage from the gala played on every news channel, the grainy images capturing Victoria's tearful accusation, Marcus's impassioned defense, their kiss, the stunned faces of the assembled guests. The headlines were merciless, each one a sharp blow to her already fragile sense of self-worth. Fake wife scandal rocks Callahan Tech, billionaire CEO's elaborate deception, from waitress to Mrs. Callahan. A modern Cinderella story or con job? "I'm fine, Mrs. Romano," Sarah managed, forcing herself to remain calm despite the rising tide of panic threatening to overwhelm her. "I'll explain everything soon." "You don't owe me any explanations, Kara." "But the bistro is surrounded by reporters. They're asking about you, wanting interviews." "I told them nothing, but I'll be there as soon as I can. Don't talk to anyone." Sarah ended the call and turned to Marcus, whose expression had hardened as he scrolled through his own phone, his jaw tight with barely suppressed fury. "My PR team has left 17 messages. The board wants an emergency meeting. And apparently Victoria gave an exclusive interview to the Times, claiming you seduced me as part of an elaborate gold-digging scheme." "Of course she did." Sarah stood abruptly, desperate to escape the suffocating confines of the apartment, to flee from the judgmental eyes of the world. "I should go. This is exactly what I was afraid of. You're Marcus Callahan, potential client worth millions in billable hours. They'll roll out the red carpet for you, and I'm betting Richard Morrison will be happy to personally greet you to try and land your business." Sarah's smile was sharp, her eyes gleaming with a dangerous glint. "And once we're inside, I know exactly where David keeps his insurance files." "Insurance files?" "Every lawyer who operates in the gray areas keeps evidence of their misdeeds hidden away, tucked away in a safe place. It's a form of protection against being thrown under the bus by colleagues or clients. If David framed me, he has documentation somewhere. And if Victoria is using illegal tactics against you, David might have information about that too. They were both part of the same social circle, both equally ambitious and ruthless. This is incredibly risky." "Everything worth having is risky," Sarah said, her voice laced with conviction. "You taught me that." They arrived at Morrison and Associates 90 minutes later. The sleek downtown building, a monument to corporate greed and ambition, represented everything Sarah had lost. But she walked through the revolving doors with her head held high, Marcus's hand steady and reassuring at her back. The receptionist's eyes widened in recognition as she recognized Sarah. Mitchell, I'm sorry, but you're not. I'm here with Mr. Callahan, Sarah said smoothly, her voice confident and composed, concealing the nervousness churning within her. He has a meeting with Richard Morrison regarding a significant legal matter. The mention of Marcus's name worked like magic. Within minutes, they were being ushered into Richard Morrison's corner office, the receptionist practically tripping over herself to accommodate them. The senior partner looked exactly as Sarah remembered, silver-haired, expensively suited, and utterly soulless, his eyes betraying a ruthless ambition that knew no bounds. Mr. Callahan. What an unexpected pleasure. The company's stock had initially dipped with the scandal but recovered stronger than ever once investors saw his commitment to legitimate business practices. Victoria was awaiting trial, her father already negotiating a plea deal. David Chun had been sentenced to 7 years for fraud and conspiracy. Sarah had watched his sentencing via video feed, feeling not triumph, but a strange sadness for the man who had destroyed himself through greed and ambition. Do you ever regret it? Marcus asked as they pulled up to her new firm's building. Taking the harder path? You could have accepted settlement money from Morrison and Associates, started your own practice, and missed the chance to help people who've been exactly where I was. Never. Sarah gathered her briefcase. Besides, I like working with a team again, as long as they're honest people this time. Marcus came around to open her door. Ever the gentleman, despite Sarah's insistence that she could do it herself. As she stepped out, he pulled her close. I'm so proud of you, not just for today, but for everything. For refusing to let them break you, for building yourself back up, and for taking a chance on me when you had every reason not to trust anyone. You made it easy, Sarah said softly. Well, not easy, but definitely worth it. Tonight, dinner at Cipriani's to celebrate. Actually, I was thinking Bruno's. Mrs. Romano is making her special lasagna. Marcus laughed. From penthouse to bistro, you certainly know how to keep a billionaire humble. That's my job, among other things. They kissed, aware of the pedestrians streaming past, but not caring. When they finally pulled apart, Marcus's expression had turned serious. I've been thinking about something. About us. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Okay. Not now. Tonight, after dinner, I want to ask you something important, but I want to do it right. He smiled at her worried expression. Don't panic. It's a good thing, I hope. Before Sarah could press for details, her new colleague emerged from the building. James Chun, no relation to David, was a 50-year-old attorney who'd built his career defending whistleblowers and fraud victims. He'd personally recruited Sarah after reading about her case. Sarah, ready for your first day? His enthusiasm was infectious. Ready as I'll ever be. Marcus squeezed her hand one last time. Go change the world, counselor. Walking into her new office, Sarah was struck by how different it felt from Morrison and Associates. The space was smaller, less ostentatious, with mismatched furniture and walls covered in thank you letters from clients rather than expensive art. Felt real, honest, like home. Your first case is already waiting, James said, handing her a file. Young woman, 26, embezzled by her business partner. Lost everything. Sound familiar? Sarah opened the file, reading the details. Jessica Torres had started a tech company with her college roommate, only to discover that the roommate had been systematically stealing funds and intellectual property. The parallels to Sarah's own story were striking. I'll take it, Sarah said immediately. I thought you might. She's in the conference room, too. Jessica Torres was petite and nervous, her eyes red from crying. When Sarah walked in, Jessica's face showed surprise at seeing someone so young. I'm Sarah Mitchell. Sarah introduced herself, extending her hand. I'm going to be your attorney. You look so young, Jessica blurted out, then blushed. I'm sorry, that was rude. It's okay. I graduated law school 7 years ago, practiced for 4 before taking a forced sabbatical. And Jessica, I know exactly what you're going through. My former partner betrayed me, too. He stole my work, framed me for ethics violations, and destroyed my career. So believe me when I say I understand your case personally. Jessica's eyes widened. You're Sarah Mitchell. I read about you. The bistro erupted in applause and cheers as Marcus slid the ring onto her finger. He stood, pulling her into his arms, and kissing her while their makeshift family celebrated around them. Mrs. Romano was crying into her apron. Tommy was taking pictures. The regular customers were toasting with their wine glasses. I love you, Marcus murmured against her lips. My fake wife turned real fiancé. I love you too, my arrogant billionaire turned genuine partner. They pulled apart, laughing through tears, and Sarah caught sight of her reflection in the window. She barely recognized the woman looking back, confident, loved, whole, and so different from the broken person who'd hidden behind a coffee counter 3 months ago. When did you plan all this? Sarah asked, gesturing to the restaurant's involvement. Last week. Mrs. Romano was very enthusiastic about helping. She said, and I quote, "About time that boy made an honest woman of you." Sarah laughed, looking at the ring on her finger. The sapphire caught the light, a deep blue like the ocean. It's perfect. Like you, I'm far from perfect, Marcus. I'm still healing, still figuring out who I am after everything that happened. Good. I don't want perfect. I want real. I want you exactly as you are, with all your scars and strength and sass. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. We'll figure out who we are together. The evening continued with celebration. Elizabeth Callahan arrived, clearly in on the plan, bringing champagne and enough joy to light up the entire block. She embraced Sarah warmly, welcoming her officially to the family. You know, Elizabeth said, pulling Sarah aside. When Marcus first told me you were married, I was hurt. But now I understand. Sometimes the best things in life don't follow the traditional timeline. You two found each other exactly when you needed to. Thank you for accepting me, even after the deception. Sweetheart, you gave my son his heart back. It had survived scandal, betrayal, relentless public scrutiny, and deeply personal demons. And it had blossomed into something infinitely more beautiful and meaningful than either of them could have ever imagined that first, contentious morning at Bruno's Bistro. Love, real, complicated, hard-won, and absolutely worth fighting for. As the joyous celebration continued late into the night, Sarah raised her glass to toast their friends and family, expressing her gratitude for their unwavering support. But in her heart, she was toasting something else entirely. Second chances, unexpected beginnings, and the unwavering courage to trust again, even when it feels impossible. Because sometimes the very best love stories start with the word no and ultimately, inevitably end with I do.